Hello and welcome. My name is Era T. Green and this is Wise Woman Television, and today I'm bringing you a pick a card reading on what would your inner child say, or what does your inner child have to say. So we will get started in just a moment here. I do want to let you know first that I offer personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life and your work and on your spiritual path. You can find all of those details below. I do have an extraordinary program enrolling now called Spirit Woman. It's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. So do check out those details below if it calls to you. I also want to ask that if you like this reading, if you enjoy it, if it resonates for you, that you like and subscribe, join this family and community. We so appreciate your support, and we look forward to and always enjoy supporting you. So thank you for being here, and to get started, I will place a picture up of your 3 card piles today in just a moment. All right, so let's get started with card pile 1. So, card pile 1. The very first thing coming through here about what does your inner child have to say? This could also have to do with inner child healing, but it could also have something to do with what are your deepest desires? What is your inner child asking for? The very first thing that's coming up here is that you want love, romance, a connection, a relationship, deep intimacy. You are longing for some deep nurturing and soul connection. And I feel like this group has rarely had that in their lives. And so it's just something that after so long or so many years or decades or whatever it's been, your heart is longing for that deep soul connection. So perhaps for card pile 1, you grew up in a family or a household that wasn't able to offer the kind of intimacy and depth and connection that you really yearned for. And so you might have closed off your heart or become someone who disengaged or distanced themselves from true and deeper intimacy. However, this is actually and truly what your heart wants most. It's truly what your inner child wants most. It wants to be seen, to be loved, to be valued for all that it is, and it's excited and eager to share that love too, right? So that childlike wonder and innocence of like the eagerness and the playfulness and excitement, it really wants to be able to share that with someone and partner along with someone on that journey. So the very first thing that's coming up for you, card pile 1, your inner child wants to bring your attention to this desire that it feels like you may not give too much attention to. You might be in these sort of rote routine or motions of your life, just kind of going through the motions and not giving this too much attention. For some of you, it's sort of a long lost desire that hasn't truly been opened or recognized in a big way. And it doesn't mean you haven't had relationships. It means that you haven't had the depth of connection and intimacy you truly yearn for. And so some of you too have suppressed this desire. It was too painful to acknowledge that this is what you wanted and that it wasn't what you were getting. And so you hid it away in a treasure box somewhere, and that's where it resides today. So your inner child wants you to know, or to remind you to take a look at that treasure box and to open it up. What's inside that treasure box? What is it that you really, truly want that maybe you've denied yourself or thought wasn't possible, or resigned to not having it, or believed isn't possible or true for you? Go look at that treasure box and see what's inside, because that's what I'm getting from this first card. It's not exactly what shows on the cards. I read the energy that's there, what comes through for me uniquely, intuitively, but it's saying take a look at that treasure box. You have to acknowledge the desire is there in order to get what you want, right? In order to also make choices and take actions in alignment with what you want. Okay, you want that soulmate relationship. And there is something too about, right, a decision, a choice point, a crossroads with the Lovers card. The Lovers can represent lovers, but it can also represent a decision. You have to be honest with yourself about what you want and acknowledge that, so that you can move forward in ways that can bring yourself into alignment with what you want, so you can actually experience what it is that you want for yourself. So yeah, your inner child wants to come out and play. It wants to sort of come alive, and it feels like you might have lived sort of in this, like, not forever, but perhaps you found yourself in maybe a numb or dark or gray area or gray space in your life right now, or for a season of time. And it feels like it's because, again, that light was turned off or dimmed. It was like, oh, okay, resignation. Just never mind. It's not going to happen for me. Let me hide this inner child away and all of her yearnings and desires, because it's not going to happen anyway. So I'd rather just live with the pain and that disconnection of myself and what it is that I want for myself, as opposed to seeking out something or yearning for something that will never happen for me. So that's the energy that happened. But in truth, at any point in time, you can acknowledge this desire. You can open that treasure box, let it fill your body, fill your mind, body, spirit. This is where you're going to come alive again. This is where you're going to feel passionate and excited again. Some of you have even turned off your sensual or side or sexuality because you were like, this is pointless. There's no one here for me to share this with. I might as well put this away too in my little treasure box. And so it's all just hidden away in there. And then you're wondering, gosh, why do I feel numb or empty or dull or gray or lifeless? And it's because, well, you're not allowing yourself to truly feel all that you are. You're not allowing yourself to feel your deepest desires. You're not allowing yourself to own those desires and be true to yourself and be completely honest with yourself. And so your inner child wants to remind you that this is all still here waiting for you to open, because as soon as you do that and you acknowledge that, a great alchemy begins to take place and this inner change and evolution within you that then makes that soul connection, love connection, romantic relationship a possibility. If you're denying it and you're saying that this isn't what you want when it is what you want, and you're also shutting off your sensual side, your romantic side, and just saying, you know, I've severed this part of myself, goodbye, it's going to be very difficult to align yourself with a soulmate connection. Not that these things don't happen, because the God's honest truth is when we're living in our soul's path, things always don't look great on paper, and we might not always be on a high or on top of the world, and we're not always in quote unquote what we think is perfect alignment for a lover, and they still come in because it's part of our soul's plan. So it's destined to happen no matter what. There's an inevitability to it. Still though, what's being told to you is that all of this begins to change as soon as you acknowledge this desire and ask yourself, how can I live this desire, hold this desire, carry this desire, be with this desire, honor this desire, listen to this desire? How can I be with that in my everyday life? Things are going to start shifting for you. Yeah, so what happens? Fertility. Okay, now some of you, of course, when you see this, you're like, pregnancy, you know, that's not what I'm looking for. And whether male or female bodied, it doesn't matter however you identify, because creative power, creative potential, fertility isn't always a literal interpretation here. It's like there's a fertile ground that awakens for bringing in this soulmate connection, or bringing in this love connection. When you're denying that you even want that, and you're cutting yourself off from all of your sensual, sexual, romantic sides, and you're also not even pursuing that or looking or making yourself available for these opportunities, and even opportunities come your way and you can't even see them because you've denied yourself of that possibility, it's going to be very difficult to create sort of a fertile ground for a seed to be planted, right? And so this fertile ground awakens or manifests with this change that happens within you as soon as you start to acknowledge this treasure box inside of you that's full of these old desires that in actuality are the things that heal you. Okay, so these desires, what's interesting that's coming through for you, card pile 1, but sounds like perhaps it could be a universal truth. I don't know, but it's like desire heals. So whatever it is you yearn for, whatever it is we yearn for, there's a healing that's available in that desire if we make ourselves available to it, right? So if we're cutting ourselves off and severing ourselves off from it, that's true disconnection, separation, if not loneliness and depression and other things too. But it's like when we acknowledge this desire and even begin to embody this desire and align ourselves with that desire and make choices or take action aligned with that desire, we start to heal. Okay, so there's something that starts to happen at a deeper level. Our souls, you know, can find healing in anything, yes, but it's like oftentimes our humans, they have a particular desire in place because it's going to bring about a kind of healing within the body, mind, spirit, within the soul. So trust that your desires are justified. It's justification enough that it exists, and it's actually going to bring about a greater healing, because when we go back and, you know, we bring this full circle in terms of the opening card here was talking about something that you sort of denied yourself over the period of your life, and what great healing there would be, and liberation and celebration when you are able to once and for all experience this deep intimacy, this deep connection, and really reconcile that longing of the soul that has been around for the duration of your life. So there's a healing in this. So follow your desires. Recognize that your desires are healing. Your desires are liberating. Oftentimes they're working toward clearing old patterns and clearing old limitations. And they're also sometimes bringing in a complement or an experience of something that you otherwise haven't experienced, and it's doing something at the soul level. So you might not recognize it if you're looking at a desire in its physical form and just looking at the object of my desire and saying, gosh, why would a TV heal me? You know, I want the next iPhone. Is this going to heal me? It's like, well, your soul tends to yearn for certain things. Let's say if it does yearn for material possessions, that's not what I'm getting for card pile 1. I'm just giving an example. You might start looking at what those material possessions tend to fill for you, what they fulfill for you, what kind of void they fill. And that's where you're going to find that gem or that insight or the revelation around the kind of healing or the need that wants to be met inside of you. So desires are healing when we move toward them, when we acknowledge them, when we live them, breathe them, embody them. Okay, so yeah, let's see here. So yeah, this greater maturity and flowering wants to take place. Now this card, I've been showing you a lot of cards today and it just feels right. So this card, what does it say? Circles. Clarity begins in the eye of the storm. So for some of you, you could have been going through or have been going through a difficult place. And so there is a message here around that in particular for you, clarity being in the eye of the storm. But what I'm getting from this card, what I tend to get from this card because of the colors is the bounty, the harvest, the field of plenty. Like that tends to want to come through when I pull this card. And so for this card pile, what that means for me and this greater blossoming and flourishing that's happening right next to it. And this other card, it's telling me that the harvest does come, the bounty does come, whatever it is that you're seeking. But how can you receive a harvest or a bounty that you aren't acknowledging that you want, right? So if someone comes to your door and knocks on the door and says, hey, do you want this bubble gum? And you say, no, thank you. You can't actually access the bubble gum, even though perhaps you even want the bubble gum. When it knocks at your door, you have to be willing to say yes. And sometimes things don't even show up at our door if we've denied them too, right? If we have a big no trespassing sign in our yard, most people aren't ever going to be able to arrive even at the door. So it's like developing greater intimacy, connection, and communion with your deeper desires, your deeper longings, and allowing those to take a place within you, allowing those to reside within you, allowing yourself to carry that desire, not getting too concerned if it becomes overwhelming or all-consuming, because for you, you've denied them for so long that your work is to learn to hold them, to carry them, to embody them, to breathe them, and over time align with them such that this greater healing starts to happen, and then you do bring forward what it is that you desire for yourself. So that is your reading, card pile 1 on your inner child. If this reading resonates for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to join our community. I also want to let you know I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. And right now I have an incredible program, a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and higher potential, or highest potential. It's called Spirit Woman, and you can check out those details below. Thank you, card pile 1. Okay, card pile 2, what would your inner child say? Or what does your inner child have to say? Okay, so the first thing here is, okay, there's something that you've wanted for yourself for a long time, okay? You have a vision for yourself, something that you really want to manifest, an outcome, but to some degree, you've been keeping it at bay, and I think part of it is due to a lack of self-responsibility, of really taking ownership of this and actually doing what's required to move toward it, okay? Because there's something about discipline, and I even recently put on my Facebook feed, discipline is about becoming your own disciple. So essentially, even though you've wanted this, you've kept this vision, this dream, this longing, or whatever at bay by just making it a fantasy and not actually beginning to ground it and manifest it into your material world. There's a lack of accountability here. There's a lack of self-responsibility, a lack of ownership, a lack of follow-through, a lack of following through in what it is that you want for yourself, a lack of following through on your own objectives and your own goals and the things that you say that you want. Responsibility is a gift of love to yourself and others, recognizing that within responsibility is freedom. So it doesn't mean we're just responsible for responsibility's sake. A lot of people rebel against responsibility for that reason, especially the rebel spirit types, the revolutionary kind of types. I'm one of them. I also thankfully have a lot of integrated responsibility and discipline thanks to my Capricorn sign and my father. So good, excellent. However, a lot of people, they balk at responsibility because they think that it's going to take from them, when in truth, responsibility and discipline can give to you, right? When you're not engaging in responsibility and discipline for its own sake, but you're doing it in service to you, in service to what you want, in service to the freedom that you desire for yourself. So some of you might have a dream and you tend to balk at it and not want it and push it away and refuse to actually hold yourself responsible and hold yourself accountable to actually do the darn thing. And what happens as a result, of course, is that you're not able to actually experience what you want, and that would be your version of freedom. So you would have freedom if you were just responsible enough to get there. So that's the irony of it all, is like the typical rebel spirit, or a lot of us who were raised in what could be controlling households, or even just parents with a strong will who had a different vision for us. There's a lot of different reasons this kind of thing rears its head. However, and sometimes we're just born with it because we came here to be a part of the age of Aquarius, right? And you're here to be bold and revolutionary and a visionary and change things and break the mold and break the status quo, all of that, right? So that's great. But you want to be using this rebel spirit in service to you, not in denial of you, not avoiding what it is that you want for yourself. Now, there is a fear perhaps of success, a fear of your greater vision that might also hold you back. So your journey then is facing those things. When you hit that wall, instead of just turning around and moving in the opposite direction and saying, never mind, sit with the wall. What does it have to say? What does it want to share with you? What is it scared of? Because there's a part of you, perhaps even your inner wounded child or your wounded inner child, that's trying to say, this scares me. And so ask it, look, give it a space for a dialogue or just connection with yourself where you're like giving this inner child space to say what it is scared of. So that way, when you recognize, ultimately I'm scared of failure, and then ultimately after failure, it's abandonment or rejection, or I'm scared of betrayal, but just being aware of that. So that way, every single time that wall comes up, meaning you go to do something and then you feel blocked, you can recognize it as betrayal, a fear of betrayal, an upper limit, fear of abandonment. You can see it for what it actually is. You can nurture that part of yourself, reparent that part of yourself, and you move forward. Just like a little kid who is in the store and they're crying for the candy at the cashier line, and the parent has to say, no, we can't have this right now, but we can have it after dinner. That child's going to scream and cry and throw a fit, and parent is going to hold them, snuggle them, and help them self-soothe. And ultimately, they don't get the candy, but they're able to move on with greater balance or integration or regulation within themselves. And so you do the same thing with yourself. You might hit that wall. It might feel really difficult to move forward. You acknowledge that. You acknowledge that it feels difficult to move forward. You recognize what it is. You recognize it for what it is. Oh, this is self-sabotage. Okay, and then you move forward. So that's what's coming through for you. Oh my gosh, you guys, you can't make this up. The Rebel Spirit card is here in this pile. Of course it is. So it's saying this can sometimes get in the way of what you want because you actually start pushing away what you want. It's like, there's the other card here too. Let's see what comes up for this one. Presence of absence. Hold what is absent in the presence of your love. Okay. So recognizing that your inner child is, your inner child, what it wants to say, what would it say is that you want this vision. We both want this dream. It doesn't mean we aren't going to have some fears here or that things aren't going to come up along the way that feel a little bit scary or unsettling, but we can face those things together. I'd really like you to walk this journey with me, and we can follow through and make this happen, because really your inner child wants this dream for you too. They might be a little bit scared again because of those inner child wounds and so on and so forth. But they want this too. They just need your partnership so that they're not coming up to scream and cry and throw a tantrum or, bringing up the wall every single time you move toward what it is you want because of the fear that's underneath that wall. Okay, so you have to be the parent here, the empowered adult, and recognize it for what it is and still journey on with that child, right? There's another message here that wants to come through, but it's just on the fringe of my awareness. So I'm going to take a moment to sit with that card and see what wants to come through. So the only other thing that's coming through, there wasn't anything that was anything glaring from what we had already discussed. However, I'm getting that message again to use that rebel spirit, that energy, instead of in opposition to what you want, use it toward what you want. Use the energy, that push, that typical what becomes avoidance or escape. Use that energy toward what it is that you want. Use that energy to help build what it is that you want, as opposed to moving away from it. And again, recognizing that not only is this your truest desire, right? You want it so badly, and yet in so many ways you deny it of yourself. And again, that's your inner child just being scared of something. So can you hold that inner child with love and nurture it and support it and soothe it as you continue to move forward to what it is that you want? Yeah. So you've had a lot of what you think are failed starts, or like this card is wishful expectations. So it could also be broken dreams, but it's acknowledge the smoke and mirrors in your life for what they are. So there is something here about, I feel like there's a couple of things coming up. One is, it could be broken dreams, failures, things that you might consider failures, even if they weren't. And so you give that primary weight and you say, okay, well, I have all this evidence as to why this isn't going to happen for me, so forget it. And that's really just your excuse to get around having to do it. And there's something here about what's more fun for you. Is it being your rebel spirit that's sort of defying the status quo and societal expectations? And maybe for you that looks like it can take any number of forms, so you have to apply it to your circumstances, your conditions of your life. But what's coming through here, let's just say you party a lot, or you're kind of living on the fringe of society, maybe you're a hippie and you're kind of doing the alternative thing or walking the alternative path. And so it's like you're doing all of those things to kind of avoid and escape societal expectations and what's traditional and all that stuff. But in effect, it's also preventing you to experience what you actually want for yourself, which is that greater discipline. So really what card pile 2, your whole thing is about, is discipline. It's about reparenting yourself. It's about becoming your own disciple. It's about using responsibility and discipline toward your freedom, toward your desires. And anything else that comes up in the way of that is really just self-sabotage and a lie and illusion, because you start labeling kind of any negative event as another reason why it's not going to work. But that's, again, just your subconscious trying to convince you that it's not going to work. Again, it's that inner child who's scared. So go nurture that, so that whatever healing needs to be done there, or clearing needs to be done there, can happen. And then you're able to move forward. It might be a slow process. It might be something over time that you're walking toward and then you're clearing, or you're walking toward and then you're nurturing, and then you're walking toward and you're clearing. It can look any number of ways. And so I guess, I don't know, there was maybe another thought that was going to come there, but it can look any number of ways. It doesn't have to look just like that. But that's the overall process, is you're just going to continue to commune with yourself, the deeper part of yourself, especially those parts of you that are scared. And this is about you reparenting yourself. This is about discipline and recognizing that discipline equals freedom, not discipline doesn't equal freedom. So there's something here about making meaning out of things that don't have a meaning, that could be neutral, but you kind of give it a narrative, again, just to self-sabotage, like, oh, that one thing didn't work out, so this isn't going to happen. Or this person didn't say, whatever, this thing didn't work out either, and this person said this, so it's not going to work out. There's just a lot of projection here, and all it is like sort of like the faulty program of that wounded inner child who's projecting all of its upset and disappointment about seeming failures, and or even fear of success onto all these things, and it's preventing you from being able to see clearly. So there is some projection going on here in that regard. And you also want to recognize you're not being too fantastical with your vision, because bigger visions do happen, and that might be the case for some of you in card pile 2. But here's the thing: if you're only looking at that huge monumental vision as the gauge, and you're just taking your first step today, everything is going to seem like a failure, right? If you're saying, my dream is to be a world famous celebrity doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's just say that is your dream. Like, I'm picking like the most ultimate dream or vision. And then today, for the first time, you've posted on social media, or today, for the first time, you've reached out to a record company and sent in your music once for the first time. Or maybe you've only even done it 15 times, because honestly, how long does it take? It takes as long as it takes. Okay, so that's the commitment that you're cultivating right now. It takes as long as it takes. You can't just assume that because that very first step, or the first any number of steps, because it didn't work out, oh, that big dream isn't for me. No. That big dream is going to oftentimes require 15 times 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 15, on and on and on to build that. So giving up right when you've just begun, or hardly begun, because your dream, the big manifestation, isn't there yet, is premature. You have to build that thing, okay? And we have to build things energetically oftentimes before they come into, or I would say all the time, before they come into physical form. So if you're just getting started, or just doing a couple things right now, but you're expecting to have everyone know your name tomorrow, that's simply not realistic. You have to acknowledge the smoke and mirrors where they are. Meaning, hold that vision, hold that dream, hold that with love. You can spend your days longing and fantasizing about that, and letting your body be in a great space of energy and love and excitement and thrill and eagerness when you are feeling that, or sensing into that, or visualizing, or whatever that dream or vision is that you have for yourself. And each and every day, you're just taking the little action steps, the little tasks that are going to slowly but steadily get you there. Do you see how the difference is? One is you're like moving every day, kind of maybe sprinting or marathoning, thinking you're, reaching at the stars here, hoping that, it's been 1 month, that dream hasn't come true, forget about it. Well, shit, it's probably not going to be 1 month, it might be a decade. Okay, that's the God's honest truth. Even for most celebrities, they've pounded on doors and went to record companies and, were in lines to be on commercials for days and weeks and years of their lives before they ever hit their big break. My point here is, your vision is something to hold and carry with you in terms of like bringing you the good vibes and the good feels, and something that you just know is true for you. You carry it, and energetically can manifest over time the longer you carry it and give energy to it. And the daily action steps that you're taking really have to be 2 feet on the ground. It's not going to be a situation where you're like flying to the moon in most cases tomorrow. So you decide to be an astronaut today and tomorrow you're up on the moon. Well, what does an astronaut have to do? They have to be physically trained. They have to be academically trained. They have to be scientifically trained. And then for years, and they prepped with their body and so on and so forth. And then eventually they reach that. That goes for any kind of career, whether it be a baseball athlete, a celebrity, an author, whatever. They've paid their dues. In most cases, I would say, if not all, people aren't born into that kind of vision or ultimate manifestation. It does happen, of course, but more often than not, there's plenty of back-end work that's happening long before that big break happens. So don't let yourself be thrown off course just because it hasn't already happened yet. You have to show up every day, or at least consistently enough for a very oftentimes long period of time in the time-space reality for something that big to show up. So let the vision inspire you, not deter you, and then focus on the action that's right here, right now in your present moment without too much attention or a tethering to that big vision. The big vision is supposed to motivate you. It's not supposed to, you get so attached to it and chained to it and bound to it that you're not even able to like take the proper steps right here in the moment based on where you're at, where you're 2 feet on the ground. You see what I'm saying? Again, like an astronaut isn't on the moon tomorrow. They have to start here where they're at. They start making calls, and they have to apply to a school, and they have to put loans down probably to show up to that school. It's probably $2 bazillion, right? So it's like, you have to take those steps here on Earth where you're at, and you're going to eventually build to being on the moon. Okay, true power lies at the root of a perceived weakness, isolation. Okay, so I feel like what's coming up here is, there's some healing or alchemy in letting yourself feel the pain. So again, your inner child might be quick to give up. The inner wounded child might be quick to give up or just say, never mind, or forget it, or this isn't for me. That resignation is a real vibe for this inner child. And so recognizing for what it is again, and that's the healing that's available here. And ultimately that's the liberation too, meaning the healing can come through that nurturing of the inner child and allowing yourself to feel the pains and the losses of this big quest and journey for you. Any vision quest, whatever kind, whatever form, will have its series of failures, losses, and disappointments. So let yourself feel the pain, but don't let that be your excuse to not get up again, right? We've heard that 1,000 times, right? The best boxers of the world are the greatest champions. It's not that they were never knocked out. It's that they kept getting back up. So let yourself feel the pain of that. Let yourself get wiped out for a while. Let yourself really be gutted by it if that's what needs to happen. And step back up again. Get back up in the ring. So card pile 2, your inner child. It wants you to work to attend to that inner child and recognize what it is that can hold you back from your greater dreams and desires. It also wants you to see your smoke and mirrors for what they are, as well as your projections in terms of assuming failure, assuming loss, assuming disappointment, as well as assuming this big fantastical vision to happen tomorrow. It just wants you to see where the distorted perceptions are so you can clear those and you can walk in truth. And then ultimately wants to support you, and it's asking that you support it so that you both can partner with each other and create this greater vision for yourself. There might be disappointments along the way, but it's asking you to get back up again. So thank you, card pile 2. If this reading landed for you, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to join our community. I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. And I have an incredible program out right now that's enrolling. It's called Spirit Woman, and it's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. So do check out those details below if it resonates. Thank you, card pile 2. All right, card pile 3. What would your inner child say? Or what does your inner child have to say? Okay, so you've been in a period of stagnation or a lack of results or a lack of outcomes for a period of time. You're feeling like you've done a lot of work and yet you're not seeing the fruits of your labor. So it's like, well, I've done all the things and I followed all the rules and I do the work and I hire the people and I get the support and I'm just not seeing the results for it. So just F it, never mind, forget about it. And it's like this maybe even resentment or bitterness about like, I'm not sure if I have that faith anymore. I don't know if I have hope anymore because it really hasn't worked out. I've put my money where my mouth is. I've been taking the action steps and not happening. So you know, and so there's some of that there. There's some of this, again, the stagnation, things moving very slowly, feeling like you've done the darn thing for a really long time and you have nothing to show for it. And it's gotten you to that point where you find that strained discomfort of working really hard for something but not seeing the end result, and things just start to become really strained over time. And then the energy around what you want can also become strained and sort of limited, or we'll say quote unquote low vibe, just for sake of ease of language here. And so then it can also be even more difficult to create what you want, because now you have this sort of sense of entitlement over it and then this greater attachment to it, like it's got to happen now. And it's sort of like it's like a stickier attachment of like, well, I've worked my ass off, so I'm done. And I'm done like waiting and playing the patient game. I've done that for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I feel like for some of you, it feels around 5 for many of you. Feels like the good majority of you, or at least half of you. And then some of you might be outliers, 10 years or 3 years or shorter. But it's like, sure, you were in the flow for a while and had that space of flexibility within yourself, and you're sort of allowing things to unfold as they did. But then it's like year 3, and then it's like year 5, and then it's like year 7, and you're like, okay, F this. If this is what it takes, fucking forget about it. And I get it, and that's the energy that's coming up. So, excuse my French. If you know me at all, follow my channel, you know that I'm not one to not use colorful language on occasion when it resonates. But like, that's what's coming through, is just like, forget about it. Now, here's the message, though, that your inner child wants to share with you. There's a misalignment here. Miracles become normal once we face all of the aspects of our life in the same direction. Okay, so what's coming through here? And this is actually one of my favorite things that I share with my clients. And so I'm going to share this here because it's relevant for you all. So there's something here that needs to get into alignment in order to support an ease of manifestation, because it's like you're working toward manifestation, but again, it has felt uncomfortable or strained or whatever over time, and it's become more and more so as time goes on, because there's a frustration here that things haven't happened yet despite all of your efforts. And you have worked really hard, and I want to acknowledge that. Like, that's a big deal. You have put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the effort. Like, that's a big deal, and I want to acknowledge that. However, and, you know, mentioning both however and as well as throwing an and in there are some pieces that still aren't fully on board, which also, again, makes it even more strained, right? If we build up enough momentum, and sometimes passion alone can be that, enough conscious drive, enough conscious action taking and choice making, we're able to sort of bypass or outweigh or outrun any subconscious or unconscious impulses and influences that are in the way of what we want. However, if our subconscious is stronger or carries more weight than our conscious willpower, than what we're doing consciously, the actions that we're taking, the choices that we're making consciously, it's going to be difficult, again, to be able to create what it is we want. Ultimately, we will over time, because if we keep chugging along, but as you can see, the manifestation becomes relatively strained. So your inner child wants to talk about getting everything into alignment. And what I use with my clients is, imagine a bunch of actors on a stage. When everything is in proper alignment and everyone has a script and everyone's playing their appropriate role, we have everyone working toward the same outcome. Everyone's following the same script. The director is there supporting. The producers created the conditions for things to happen. You have your lead actors. They know their lines. They're working well. Then you have your supporting actors. They're in the background. They know their characters. They know their role. And everyone's working together as a team to bring about this greater vision, to bring about this theatrical play. That's when everything is working well. All the wheels are turning. The gears are working toward the same outcome, the same output, the same result. Now, for a lot of people, or at least I would say even most people, how that actually looks is you have a stage for a play, and the lead actor is out in the back in the stall smoking a cigarette. Lead actress is having an emotional melodrama moment, and she's upset because, you know, she's jealous. A timer went off. So she's jealous that you know, someone else got more screen time than her, and then you have the other kids in the back who have barely memorized their results. They barely memorized the script. They don't know their lines, and then the other ones are still asleep. They haven't even woken up for the day yet. The other ones are like, again, caught out back, you know, hanging out with their friends as opposed to being on stage. So that's usually what's going on for most people. That's like the drama that's actually happening inside the psyche of an average human being. And so you can kind of see the difference there. How in one situation, the play is very clean, things are flowing, things are producing this really beautiful manifestation and outcome, and the other one is totally disjointed, disconnected, and it's certainly not working in an aligned fashion or a united front to be able to create what it is that, well, you want in your situation, but certainly not able to create that play. So You want to be able to get all parties on board, or get as much of your conscious aspects and conscious factors in alignment with what it is that you want as you can, okay? So that way, at least you're controlling what you can control, and then ideally you create enough momentum to be able to create what you want with greater ease, or with ease, which also means a quicker result in terms of time. I do feel like there's another message here that wants to come through, but we'll see if it comes on all on its own. Yeah, because your inner child does have this great dream, this fantasy, this childlike wonder about what it wants to experience, and all these, sort of innocent fantasies and daydreams about what it wants to be and what it wants to do and how it wants to contribute to the world. And a lot of it's just like fun and fancy free. And for some of you, you've even thought about fame or fortune or celebrity. Some of you want to be a well-known artist or healer. And it can look any different number of ways for all of you who are watching. Let it apply to your own dreams and conditions. It just feels like this inner child is only focused on its like self and its dreams. And it's not like letting itself be like hampered or dimmed down by any like real world or practical constraints. Like your inner child wants to say, hey, let's return to this dream and let's get everything on board, and we're going to see what else needs to come through for that. But it's like your inner child wants to remind you about this dream, the innocence of it, like the rawness of it, the purity of it. And I feel like that's going to help sort of move things along too. Like instead of giving too much attention to the practical concerns or the practical constraints, which can tend to hold you back, pile 3, instead just hold on to that, like, or carry that with you, that pure innocence, that pure desire, that pure dream, without any kind of practical considerations, not putting any pressure on it, not putting any limits or constraints or restrictions on it. You're just going to hold and carry that dream and desire with you. And then as you begin to take action and integrate and bringing things into alignment, that ease of manifestation is going to come about so much more easily as a result, because you're holding that desire with so much love and innocence and purity. And it's just a simple little daydream that you carry with you. It's like this beautiful little seed. And then as you start to take action in real life relevant to that dream, it can be properly watered, nurtured, nourished, and so on and so forth, such that it can blossom and with great ease. It's saying like your manifestations are available here. It's just getting all of the pieces on board and online, so to speak. I almost want to ask what it is that's in your way, but maybe we'll get to it. Okay, so yeah, you have this greater dream. It's altogether very possible for you. You're being told and that like this is meant for you. This is a part of your destiny. It's very much a part of your soul's mission or your soul's purpose. Like this is available for you. It's not something that is distant or far away. It's just a matter of getting those things online and in alignment. So this could be the number one thing that you're avoiding or facing in your life. There is something and you probably know it, and if you don't know it, it's probably because you're denying that you don't know it, but you actually do. Did I say that right? But in one way or another, you are avoiding the obvious, like the big fat elephant in the room. And once you address or connect with that and align that piece, everything else can get moving pretty quickly. So there is going to be a breakthrough here, and it has something to do with, so some of you, again, because of this bitterness, this resentment, this loss of hope, faith, disappointment, whatever it has been, you've gotten to a place where you sort of are responding to that emotionality within you of, we'll just forget about it, or never mind, or resignation. So you're making choices from that place, and you're making choices of escape and avoidance. You're making more choices like that than you are in alignment with your true desire. And so you're being asked, your inner child is saying, hey, all you have to do is take more action and make more choices in alignment with what it is that you want, as opposed with what you don't want. And then it can come around pretty easily. But when you have all this baggage and all this bitterness and resentment and upset or whatever it is, as a result of all this taking so long and all this stuff and whatever, and then you're taking action based on that, meaning oftentimes you're saying forget about it or never mind, or you're just not taking enough action to bring about enough momentum to bring something into manifestation quickly. It's like that's where you're seeing that lag. It's because you are holding back. You aren't fully charged. You aren't fully moving forward. And so the manifestation isn't able to gain enough steam to actually unfold and materialize. But there will be a breakthrough here. There's a breakthrough. And that also means, for me, a materialization or a manifestation of what you want most definitely comes through the more you can start making choices in alignment with what you want, as opposed to what you don't want. Because right now, again, some of you are still making choices around avoidance and escape, resignation, failure, never mind, bitterness, resentment, loss of hope, faith, all that stuff. You're making more choices around that. We could even say kind of being lazy about it and just being like, where is it? But when you actually look at your life, would you say this is in perfect alignment with my desires? And one way to tell is how do you feel? If you feel bitter and resentful and hopeless, you're probably not in alignment with that pure desire of what it is that you want for yourself. And that might even make you angry to hear that, because I feel that. So for some of you are probably like, oh, we'll just forget it then. And again, just continue making choices in alignment with what you want, and that stuff is going to clear over time. But the more and more you give attention, effort, and energy and choices and decisions to that part of you, the stronger it gets and the more difficult it gets to sort of untether yourself from that side of you. So you want to give more action, more choices, more energy, more attention to the side of you that's in alignment with that desire. The part that is sort of untainted and undistorted by old losses, old resentments, and so on and so forth. You need to start responding from your truth, your wholeness, all that you are, as opposed to the parts of you that feel victimized, the parts that you feel hurt, the parts of you that feel angry, whatever that is, right? Because it might look different for many of you, but it's like when you make choices from that side of you, you're going to continue to experience more of that. So you need to sort of span out or broaden your perspective to start making decisions and choices that are aligned with your wholeness, which also includes your hope, your faith, your optimism, looking at all the abundance that's already here, that kind of thing. That's going to support your greater manifestation, but also for it to manifest easily. All this is about is self-mastery. Again, this is a reflection of discipline I'm getting to, in terms of being able to really discipline yourself to come from a place of responding in alignment with what you want and learning to do so, and learning to sort of override any impulses that are asking you to do different. And this doesn't mean that you're not going to do, quote unquote, any shadow work or inner work or integration. We talked a lot about that in card pile 2. You can listen to that pile if it resonates. I'm not going to cover that here because it's not as strong of an energy. And I feel like a lot of you have already done that stuff. And that's why you're like, I've already done all that shit. So I'm ready for the thing, right? The result. And so part of this is about self-mastery, of really coming into full alignment, bringing all parts of you on board to move toward what it is that you want. So intention, lacking personal direction begets confusion and life as a pawn to someone else's game or chess, game of chess. So again, stepping into that strength, that inner resolve, that inner conviction, that knowingness. Again, just, it's honoring that intention or that vision or the outcome that you have and that you hold or carry for yourself. That self-mastery piece is going to support you to be able to make decisions that are in alignment with what you want. So I did want to pull a clarifier card here. I had a question earlier. I'm trying to see what it was. Okay, what parts of you need to get in alignment? Let's see that. Okay, so the parts that need to get into alignment are, and these are just, a few of cards. I actually feel like there's a lot of variables and it might differ for many of you, like across the broad spectrum of people who will watch this, it might be different. However, I'm pulling a few clarifiers here for the majority of you where this will land. So it's continuing to see the truth and know the truth and move toward that, as opposed to fear, falsehood, scarcity, limitation, sort of base human emotions of anger, disappointment, things like that. So learning to be able to hold, walk in alignment with, and honor the truth of all that you are, and the truth of your own power to be able to create and manifest, and trusting in that power and trusting in the higher power. So part of that is it. Some of it is due to stress that might be in the way. So you might be juggling a lot of balls in your life. You might be trying to find balance across many dimensions of your life. And so part of the work here is creating space and clearing out the clutter for some of this to come in. So it's really simplifying and bringing focus and direction to your life so that everything, again, is in full alignment with what you want. And there's something here about receiving too, becoming receptive to what wants to come through. Again, that anger, that bitterness kind of pushes everything away and says, never mind, forget about it. You want to take that no trespassing sign out of your yard and unbar the door if you want this abundance or this greater success or these outcomes to be able to fully land for you and manifest. I do feel like there's a lingering thought on the edge of my awareness, so I'm going to take about 30 seconds here to sit for just a moment, and then I will come right back to you to finish up your reading. Okay, so the final piece that's coming through, because I said, well, how do they get into alignment? I know we talked about some of the things that are in the way, but I do feel there's a lot more variables underneath that. It's like the tip of an iceberg, and I want to move that iceberg for you, because that's how you're going to be able to let this flow into your life. So I want you to make a list of everything that you can control when it comes to this manifestation, right? Everything you can control, whether it's related to mindset, whether it's related to self-sabotage, whether it's related to your life/schedule, like lifestyle, whatever it is, write a whole list of the things you can control. Then I want you to make a list of all the things you can't control, right? Which is the timing that it shows up, the opportunities that present themselves to you, the people that might be required as a part of your vision. All those things that are outside of your hands are out of your control. So you're going to write all of that stuff down. And then you're going to have a very clear idea as to what's in your control and what's out of your control. So that way you can stop focusing on or caring for the things you can't control because you can't control them. And instead you can put all of your weight behind all of the things that you can control. So take a look at all those things you can control and begin to take aligned action and make relevant choices that support that side of the list so that you can build a lot of conscious flow or momentum or build a lot of energy and at least the part of your manifestation that is under your control. You're going to put all of your energy and attention there. So if it's like positive mindset, you're going to focus on positive mindset. If it's getting healthier, you're going to focus on getting healthy. If it's any number of things, you know, the receiving, like becoming receptive, like we talked about, it's going to be focusing on clearing some of those old negative emotions that are in the way of being able to receive and really reconciling with those parts of you and letting yourself work through, process, and clear those parts of you so you can create that space emotionally, energetically, and in your body to be able to receive, you know, higher frequencies. So, there's a lot more I could say for card pile 3. To be honest, there's a lot here, but this is already a pretty lengthy and comprehensive reading, so I am going to end it here. If you do find you need more, I do offer personal readings as well, so please do reach out if that lands for you. Of course, if you liked and enjoyed this reading, I encourage you to like, to subscribe, to become a part of our family here. I offer tons of free videos regularly and love to be able to support you in your life, in your work, and on your spiritual path. I also offer coaching programs, and right now I have a program out. It's a year-long coaching community to nurture your true nature and your highest potential. That's called Spirit Woman. And if that resonates for you, I encourage you to check out the details below. Thank you, card pile 3.